Hello, everyone. We'll just give it one more minute and then we can get started with the presentation. So just hang in there for a little bit. So it's good to see more people joining. I see some familiar names showing up. So thank you for joining. All right. So it's now 3 p.m. in Eastern time zone. We can get started. So welcome and thank you for joining week 3 of the MyLabs Bootcamp. Today's session is the Event CMS. It will be guided by Dan. He's the EventApp specialist for the Americas. Emilio, he is a senior timer in the EMEA region, and myself, I'm working with the Americas in the EventApp team as well. One more thing, if you have questions, you can write them on the question box, and we will address them during the presentation or after the presentation. The topics we are covering today are the dashboard, how to create events. We're gonna run through the CMS and the event wizard. We will review the course maps, getting the timer set up ready. Emilio will show how to upload and create results. And then I will review some support channels. And we will have some time for questions at the end. Now I'm gonna leave you with Dan, who's gonna start.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Okay. And bear with me here. And boom. Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. I hope everyone can see my screen. Okay. So basically what I'd like to do is start with a poll question right off the bat. If you all have a chance, please take a look at your screen and go ahead and answer the questions for us. I can see, yep, lots of good activity here. Fantastic. Good. Okay. 1%. And the question obviously is, how much experience do you have with the Event CMS? So this is a great way for us to kind of gauge our audience and tailor the presentation as such. We're still collecting some responses. You're getting there. Still tallying up all of our results. Okay, let's see here. Okay, I think we're all set. Basically, what I'm going to do is go ahead and share with you our results. And as you can see, we have about 54% of the audience of all of you do have experience with the CMS, 29% don't, and 18% a little. So that's great. That's a very good smattering of experience. And it's nice because this presentation will address really all three. For those of you that do have experience, it is a nice sharpener, something to refresh yourself with the CMS. And in addition, those of you who have some or no experience, this would be a very nice entree into what we're trying to do. Okay, great. Okay, so basically what I'd like to do is begin. Obviously, timers have a variety of roles, and principally timing the event is key. But with the onset of the app, and in particular live tracking, all of the experiential features for athletes on race day and supporters, the timer role becomes a little bit more critical. And what we want to do in this presentation is illustrate and run through the timer setup piece of the CMS. But also, as we know, some of you also have to manage the app on behalf of your customers. So those would be functions related to content and design and graphics and all that good stuff. So what I'd like to do is briefly go through an overview on that stage first, and then we'll pivot over to the timer setup portion. So that being said, obviously we always want to log into the CMS. Click Start. And I will go ahead and log in with my credentials. There we go. And bingo. So basically, we're showing you kind of a macro view of the CMS. This is an organizational view. And some key takeaways on this page, which is always the first page that comes up after you log in, is the upcoming events. The key things to this page are as follows. You always have a list of your events or apps. These are apps. In this case, we have two, but I'm sure some of you know these could be as many as 25, 30, or you may just have one event. Moreover, this view lists these events, obviously by date, and also shows you as the organizer a couple different things. One, it's always going to show what features are enabled. For example, we know that this is a Sport Hive event app. We know that we have live tracking enabled, progress notifications. We do not have photo enabled all the way down the line. This view is also a great place to copy a particular event. For example, if we're moving from the 2020 race into the 2021 race, this would be a place to do it, or a place to delete the event. Now, with this organizational view, this is a very nice presentation. However, I do want to guide you into another view of the organization, which is a little bit more robust. And the way we do that is we just drill into one particular event app. I'll click on that. And bingo, this is our dashboard for the one particular event app. This is one race, one app. However, in this dashboard, under event details, you notice organization. If I click here, this would be your organization. Again, another macro view, organizational level view. This page has a lot of the same content, but it also has some critical things in it as well. Okay. Namely, there is the ability to create a new event. So if I click on this, I'm prompted to tell the CMS that this is either going to be an event app, it'll be a Sport Hive live app, or, and this is very important, I'm only creating a results page, okay? Because oftentimes, you know, we may have customers that do not have an event app, however, they do prefer to use our results platform. And this is where it all begins. Once you do that, you'll then be taken to what we call the Quick Start Event Wizard, which is this. I'm going to return back to this in a moment, okay? But keep that in the back of your minds real quick, all right? Another thing on this organizational page that is critical to understand is you also have controls for your results, namely the ability to design your results page. And what do I mean by a results page? This would be the landing page that you would post where athletes can search for their record. They can look at their time, look at their splits, the whole 9 yards. And as such, this page should be branded to your look and feel, be it your timing organization or the race that you're working on behalf. So that's a very important piece, that this can always be branded with a logo, with your coloration, all of that good stuff, okay? Other things in this area, the ability to connect and disconnect results to a particular app, and so on, okay? So that's just a little preview at the organizational side of the business. And again, this is mostly designed for our partners who may have a timer app where they're managing 10 apps, maybe 30 apps, in some cases 50. Or you may only be managing one app for a particular race, but that's where this would show. Now, on that level, how do we manage that app? Well, we simply drill out of our organizational view and drill in to a particular app. Let's try this one right here. Perfect. This is the dashboard for the event app, okay? And for the most part, this is pretty basic. It's broken out into a variety of quadrants. This quadrant is event details. You can simply edit the date, the time, the location of the event, and that good stuff. Races, I'll come back to that in a moment. But what I want to touch upon is app setup. And this would be applicable to our partners who are not only doing the timer setup with live tracking, but also may be asked to create content, tiles, colors, sponsor graphics, all of that. Just to give you a little hint and a preview, let's have a look. First of all, the most important place to be would be tiles. What is a tile? Well, a tile is nothing more than a big button. This menu allows you to create and edit tiles. In this presentation, I've done a couple different things. First of all, I've created a, let's say, Expo and Packet Pickup tile. If I click on that tile, I can change the title. I can change the graphic that sits on that tile. I can decide that I want to link it to a website so that when someone clicks on that tile, it redirects right to that particular event's website. That is an option and such. And then obviously I can designate the height of the tile. Mostly they default to medium, okay? But for this purpose, we're going to keep that one in place. Same thing with the weekend schedule. The only difference here is I've chosen, instead of linking this tile to a website, I linked it to a content page. I'll get to content page in 1 second. The main thing about the tile is that not only can you create what sits on top of it, what sits behind it and such, but by simply dragging and dropping, I can move these tiles to where I want them to be. And that's kind of a neat thing. In addition to that, I can also change the tile gaps, okay? So lots of flexibility there with tiles. Now, the other thing that I want to mention, in addition to tiles, is content. As I mentioned earlier, you can connect to a content page. This is where that all occurs. For example, here's a page that I built out this afternoon. It gives me the preview. I can go on and elect to edit the page. It gives me syntax help with different things for bold, font sizes, and all of that good stuff, okay? So that's content pages. And what you'll notice is, you know, for a mature app that's been developed, usually you've got quite a few different content pages, and they're simply linked back into the tile, okay? The last thing that I want to touch on real quick is design. And you always have the autonomy to change the design of your app in terms of your logo that sits on the homepage header, You can change the background image. You can even change your color scheme. All good things, just for your awareness, and so on. Okay, so let me back out of that. Now, one important thing about an app is when you begin the process, when you create a new event, I want to return back to the quick start wizard, which is this right here. Notice that this hasn't been submitted. So if I click on this, this is really your first step. You need to go in and furnish any event info, furnish the design elements of the app, any of the configuration items, Fahrenheit, Celsius, all of that good stuff. And when you're done, we simply click submit. We agree to the legals, and we click publish in Sport Hive. And we are now done. There we go. So I get a notification the event has not been submitted. Technically it should be, but the point here is that, bear with me, the point here is that when you submit the wizard, this triggers our team at the event team that we have a new event, we have a new app, and we now need to start doing our administrative duties, and so on. Okay. All right. I am now going to pivot away from those general administrator functions, and we're going to go ahead and jump into another poll question. Let's go right here. I'm going to launch it. And this question is basically, you know, do you have races with multiple loop course maps? Or AKA, think about it this way. Do you all manage the creation of the maps? Could be multiple loops, point to point, whatever, for your administrator. Go ahead and fill out that poll and we'll get some good data here and then we can move on. As I'm sure you know while you're doing this, course maps are an integral part of the app for two reasons. One, for the user, for the athlete, spectator, a map is a great thing to refer to for location of start finish, for the runner, for any of the water stops, all of that good stuff. So the map's critical for the user side, but also a map must be created in order to deploy live tracking. And that's very, very important. So just a heads up on that. So we're going ahead and collecting our data. Okay, I think we're in pretty good shape. Well, we're still collecting some responses, so bear with me here. Okay, I'm going to close that. And then, so basically we have 81% do build maps. That's fantastic. 19% don't. So that's good to know. And that's also the ideal segue right into our next part of the CMS, which is building out course maps. Essentially, anything to do with the race. Okay, we have our event. This is the webinar event. But inside that, we have the Webby Half Marathon and the MyLaps 10K. All of that information, including course maps, is housed here. So if I click on the Webby Half Marathon, this gives me the opportunity to make race level edits. What does that mean exactly? I have the opportunity to edit any of the race details, the name, the distance, the date, the time, that good stuff. Very basic high level editing items. However, another important component to this area is the course details. This is where you go in and do all things course maps. At the beginning, you have two options to load a course map. Option one would be to import the course. This has to be a GPX file. This is definitely the most efficient way to get the course map into the CMS. Additionally, if you don't have a GPX file, there are websites and tools available that basically will allow you to do that, namely GPS Visualizer is a good one, which can convert any file into GPX or GPX simplifier. Happy to send those along to anyone. Your second option to load a map is to draw a course. That is pretty basic. That's using Google Maps, and you're simply plotting the courses at the course along the streets or the trails as you go along. For our purposes today, I think it'd be instrumental if we just go ahead and upload, import a GPX file. I'll click that. Go in and grab that file, which is this one, and I'll click upload, and we have a course map. One thing to take into consideration with course maps is that once you have the map in there, you can then go in to customize it. Customizing means adding a marker. I'm not going to go into a deep dive with this now, but you should be aware that typical markers to be added are start and finish line, rest stops, water stations, viewing areas, and such. All great things that we can touch on in a one-on-one session should you become interested in looking at that. Okay, at this point in the presentation, what I'd like to do now is pivot from what we just discussed on the administrator side, everything about customization and tiles, course maps, logos, and graphics, now pivoting to the timer side of the CMS. And this, I think, is probably the most important part of the presentation because ultimately your role is critical in deploying the live tracking capability for race day, the leaderboards, the live ranking, any of the experiential features that really help to make an event a really great experience for everyone. So how do we do that? Well, step one is going to config, and you just go to timer setup. This is it. This is your page right here. For reasons of brevity, I'm just going to go through the page and explain each of the areas. First of all, one thing that I'd like to illustrate is you do have access to a complete timer guide and a quick start timer guide. These are PDFs that you can download, tips and tricks, instructions, and things like that. Additionally, in your timer setup page, you also have what we call configuration status. And this is really kind of your altimeter, so to speak, the most important gauge for you. And the way that this works is twofold. In the orange area, you're presented with a list of open items, where there are issues. For example, no timing and scoring configuration known, or no registration data imported. You get the idea. Congruent with this is a nice little punch list of action items. And the goal here is to get to the green check status. Okay, we have our tiles built perfect. But eventually, we'd like to get the exporter done, the races, the timelines, and registrations. Well, how do we do that? So we get to a complete green check status, and we resolve all of these. Well, we just simply scroll down. Obviously, we provide you with all the support information to contact MyLabs. We have an engineer on staff on call during race weekend. Raquel will dive into this at the conclusion of this presentation. But another area that's equally important is, what if we need to reach out to you on race day, which happens quite often? We do need to know your name. We need to know your phone number. That's my cell number. Write it down now. I'm just kidding. Also your email, and if you have a Skype ID, furnish that as well. And the reason this is important is because if that engineer who will be monitoring your race notices an anomaly at the start, i.e. no passings, or leaderboard is off, they will be reaching out to you, and we need to know how. Scrolling down, obviously, we want to get to TCPI exporter, or what we call timing and scoring configuration. So this is key. Everything in here has to do with making that connection on race day. We furnish with you the IP address, the port to use, and then we ask you to simply furnish a username, you make that up, and a password. And what you'll do is, as you know, you'll use these username and password to authenticate the exporter on race morning. And then just a reminder to auto check, reconnect, to check export markers, and then just let us know what system hardware you're using. BidTag, ProChip, or Championship. I think we can all agree BidTag is the most popular. Okay. The other part of this dashboard that's critical is the races. And this has to do with timelines, okay? This is very critical because the CMS needs to have the timelines inputted so that it knows exactly where that passing is collected, so that we can project the live tracking information. In order to do this, you would do this one by one for each race. So we have the Webby Half Marathon. Let's start there. If I click on Edit Timelines, this takes me directly to our timeline page for the Webby Half. And our first call to action here is to create a start and finish marker. So what we like to do is kind of guide you around the intermediates. What I mean by that is we want to start with the start line. I click on Edit, and I put in my location name. So this is very critical and a very good tip. The name of this location name in the CMS has to be exactly the same as what you have in timing and scoring. So start prime, okay? We'll put that in. We know that the race is connected to the half marathon. We leave this for the start blank. We know it's 0 distance, obviously. If this were an intermediate, like the 5K timeline, then we would put in 3.1 miles. And then we put in a name for the timeline. And this is the name that is displayed in the app live tracking and in the web live tracking pages. Real quick note on some really cool filters and features. This particular one, which defaults to visible as split, simply means that if it's checked, this timeline is visible in the app and web live tracking. If it's unchecked, this timeline is not visible, okay? Do not include in live tracking position, speed, and calculations. If this is checked, it says that the split time is not to be used for position and speed of the athlete on live tracking. If it's unchecked, then it's per normal, speed calculations will be used. Well, what does all this gobbledygook mean about this? Simply this, and a good analogy is this. If you have an announcer line that may be a quarter mile, or let's say not even that, 500, 300 yards from the finish line, you probably want to check this for the announcer line, so that athlete's position and speed isn't skewed because they're crossing two different timelines that are so close to each other. Timeline open time. This is a really good feature, particularly at the start line timeline, in that when you use this and when it's set up, any passing will be ignored prior to the designated open time. And what does that mean? Well, let's say our race is the 25th, and I know that this race starts at 8, but let's make this timeline open up at 7:59. What that means is for any of the athletes or runners that are loitering around, eating their power bar on the mat, or doing sprints up and down, all those passings will be thrown out before 7:59 a.m. So it's a nice stopgap measure. It's optional, obviously, and so on. Trigger progress notifications. When this is unchecked, simply means that when an athlete passes this timeline, there will be no push notification message sent to followers of their progress. Prevent live tracking overshoot. Basically, when this is checked, the live tracking estimated position for an athlete by the algorithm will never show, okay? Meaning it will require that the athlete actually passes the timeline when we get the read of the tag, okay? the overshoot occurs when the algorithm drives and an athlete may not pass the timeline, but due to the calculations, it thinks that athlete has, okay? That's the difference. So you can control that right here. Another cool functions, you can always display a status message. This decoder is on fire, no tracking. Obviously, I wouldn't use anything that harsh, but I'm just adding a little levity to our presentation. What that means is that a message will be displayed in the tracking page to any app user or any web page user following an athlete, just to let them know that it's not available. Last but not least, and kind of a really cool new addition, is auto move participants. Very simply, if you have two races that at one time share the same course, let's take a marathon and a half marathon, and at some point in that race, the marathoners keep going straight into the country, while the half marathoners will verge right. What happens is, and we all know that some marathoners may not just be up for running 26.2, so instead I'll run at 13.1. Well, you can set that timeline on the designated half marathon course after they diverge, so that that marathoner will automatically, when they cross that timeline, be placed into the half marathon. Same thing with a 5K, 10K, however that works. A very key feature. Thanks to our development team for going ahead and getting that set up. Okay, so basically what I've just illustrated is everything that has to do with our timer setup. And as you know and can imagine, this really has to do with the core functionality of live tracking and push notifications. And then altering and tweaking the timelines so that we filter the data that's coming through, we don't get early passings, and all of that good stuff, okay? Now, another function of our partners is not only handling the live tracking information and all of that stuff, but what about the data? In order for us to, obviously, as you know, execute live tracking and push notifications, there's going to have to be a series of registration imports sent into the system. And in my experience, really, it depends on the relationship and the customer. In a lot of cases, the timers go ahead and import the data. In some cases, the administrators do it. In some cases, Raquel or myself are doing it. Either way, it's good to have 3 sets of eyes on it. If your role is to import data, let's just quickly review that whole piece to the event CMS. There's 2 ways to import data. The first way is what I call direct. That would be taking a data file that's earmarked, say, only for the half, and importing that only into the half. And the way I do that is I go back to my races area, I click on the Webby half, I click on registrations, and I click on import data. And on this page, you'll notice that this defaults to the Webby half. Simple enough. The other option to import data is to do it right here at the master button. If I click on import data, you'll see the same screens. The difference here is I'm loading a file that has the half marathon and the 10K runners in it. And here it defaults to auto select, meaning the CMS will parse the data and map each athlete to each particular race as identified in the database, in the file. Let's go over this page real quick. This is some good information to read, instructions on before, after, just some good tips. But moreover, and a better thing to look at is if you're ever stumped, click on the sample file. That will pull up a sample data file that has all of the mandatory fields required. Also, as a reminder, and as a primer, you've got import format. This simply lists by asterisk all the fields, if it has an asterisk, it's mandatory, that you can have in an import. ID we need a given name, family, but you can have as much or as little information to show up on that live tracking, that individual's profile. But in order to deploy live tracking, you have to have the mandatory fields. Well, what does that look like? And it's this. And this, I created a sample spreadsheet. Basically, the mandatory field here is unique ID. It's critical that this ID stays the same across all of your imports. The reason is, this is what anchors that athlete's record in the app. If I were to select Chandler to follow, he will remain in my selection page no matter what, because his ID has stayed the same across all of the imports. Conversely, if you load a file and you change the IDs after the first import, it'll wipe out that record, okay? So that's important. Bib number, pretty straightforward. What's the bib number? We have to have it, mandatory. Chip code. Always include a chip code column. Majority of cases, the chip code is the same as the bib number. And if that is the case, leave the column blank. However, in some cases, the chip code is different from the bib number, as you all know. If that is the case, then you have to go ahead and put in the chip codes, and obviously furnish them formatted in the 7-digit format. I will get back to chip code in a second because there's a handy, neat little trick in the import area for that. Okay, given name. Well, that's AKA first name, mandatory. Family name, that's the person's last name. Race, another mandatory field, and this is very important, a very good tip here. Whatever the name of the race is in the CMS, that has to be the exact same name in the data file, okay? So for example, in the CMS, if I go here, I go to races, Webby half marathon and MyLapse 10K, that's the same in here. If you've got the First National Bank of Main Street supported by Jones Plumbing Company inaugural half marathon as a name, that's going to be a little taxing to get in there. What you can do then is assign in the race details page an ID number. As long as you put it in that page, then you just put the ID number in here. It could be like 1 for the half, 2 for the 10K and all that. A nice shortcut, kind of a cool thing to use. Gender, optional field, except if you're doing leaderboard. You have to have gender in the data import in the file if you're doing leaderboard, because by default, the leaderboards are male, female, top 15 or 20 or whatever you want. Birth date, optional, except if you're offering Bib Connect. Now, what is Bib Connect? Bib Connect is taking this thing with you on your run and enabling the GPS piece on it. And the way that that's done is the athlete will go into the app, click on Bib Connect, and we have to validate who they are. And the way we validate them is we ask, what is your bib number? What is your birth date? Okay, that's why birth date's important only if you're using Bib Connect. Category, another optional field, except if you're enabling live ranking. Simply put, in order to rank athletes in the live tracking page, we need to know what are the categories. And I've furnished the basics, the age groups in this case, okay? Okay, that was a quick overview. I'm gonna back out of this one here real quick. Now what I'd like to do.
Question from one of the attendees is,
please,
can they
go
use
ahead.
a third-party timing and scoring software with the app?
Can you repeat the question?
Can I use a third-party timing and scoring software with the app?
No, you cannot. This is for timing and scoring for MyLapse. dedicated to MyLabs. Yep. Okay. Continuing, we just looked at the import file. What I'd like to do is go ahead and show you how to import. Now, the key takeaway here, and this is very important, is you have two options on type. A fresh import is basically a new file that you're importing into the system, and it will replace any existing file in the CMS, okay? For example, you did an import on Monday, but then you had 500 people register. So you added them to your master file. You'll do another import on Wednesday to include everyone. You do a fresh, okay? File coming in replaces the file that's there. The other option is do an update merge. This is a little bit different. The update merge is only if you have a specific file of additions or changes. And when you use update, it will merge that file with the existing data in the CMS. The key takeaway here is pre-race, we recommend always doing a fresh import. With the advent of dynamic bib numbering, if you're doing imports during the race, it's very important to just do an update. We want to keep what's in there whole, but you're just adding to it. Our purposes today, we're going to do a fresh import. It's going to auto select for me, meaning it'll parse to the 10K and the marathon. My date format, I have it defaulted to what I use, but you can default it to different things. And again, that's if you're loading birth date. Okay, you remember when I talked about chip code and leaving that blank? If the case is the chip code is the same as the bib, which is the norm, all you do is click use the imported bib code as chip code. And what that'll do is the CMS will automatically assign bib 14 to chip code, what is it, 000014, or whatever the 7-digit one is. But that's very important that you have that enabled. I open up my file, click on demo data, and I click upload. And the thing is doing its thing. And you get a progress bar right here, which shows you percentages that are being uploaded. We get to 78, boom. Import is completed, 100 records have been imported. Now, the nice thing about this tool is if you do have a problem, you'll get an error message that says line 103 is duplicate, line 105 is da-da-da-da-da. So, pretty cool tool. To conclude with registrations, now that we've imported data, to get a handle on what you've imported, you can always go back to the race. For the Webby half, we've got 75 in there. If I click on registrations, there it is. Chip code, the ID, the bib number, that's who's running, category, birth date, and all that. Now, the key thing here is just a nice review. I always go through and just double check everything to make sure, you know, if this whole column is blank, then I know I forgot something or whatever. But you get the idea, but it's a nice area. You can edit a record, you can delete a record. You can also add registrations. For example, you've got 5 people that showed up at 8:35 to start for an 8:30 race. Well, you can just add those records in on the fly if you need to. Okay. Now, let's switch gears a little bit. Let's get away from registration data and timing. Timer setup and all that. And let's go to another critical function, which is leaderboards. Fun stuff. Very simply, the leaderboard is a projection of the top male and female athletes as projected in the app, in the tracking page, and also in a public space. There's always a public leaderboard that people can click on, and they can look from a web view and also in the app. As I mentioned, you can do a couple things. For example, I'll start with create a default leaderboard. If I just click that, you're done. That's going to give you the basic default men, women in the Webby half we want to do 15 athletes, and it will show after each timeline where, who are the leaders, okay? However, in most cases, we have a bunch of different categories and things like that. If you have, for example, masters female, or open relay, or elite male and female, and you need to create leaderboards for them, you would create new leaderboard. We assign it to the Webby path. This would be elite men. On this one, this is a biggie. So I want to show 20 athletes. We are men, so we say male. We don't have a category, so don't worry about, oh, actually, there would be a category. If we wanted to segment that even more, we can create, men's elite and so on, or masters elite and so on. And then we would just simply create, save it, and boom, here's our leaderboard. Like anything, leaderboards can get as complicated as you want, or they can be as simple as you want. It just takes a little bit of work to fine tune them. However, as a reminder, if you're doing leaderboards, you need to have that gender in there in the import file, okay? If you're doing leaderboards that are even more category specific, you need to have that category piece in there, also with live ranking. So what happens with leaderboards and race morning? Well, the most important thing with leaderboards is you always have to set a gunshot. And this is a good time to wander over to what we call the live timelines page. This is, as I've seen in my experience, really the page that every timer has open during the event. When the event starts, and in order to enable leaderboard, you click assign gunshot. And when they do the gunshot, it should pull right over. You select it. Or if you need to do a manual gunshot, you just manually enter the time to the millisecond, scroll down, and click save. So the takeaway here is you must assign a gunshot for leaderboards. The other takeaway here is live timelines is a really useful tool for you to use to gauge where athletes are on the course. Now, obviously, we only have 2 timelines set up. In the big picture, we probably have 2 intermediates in here, but it'll give you a percentage and a numeric count of everyone that's passed each timeline. Just so that you're aware of what's happening, you can prepare maybe the finish line party crew that, hey, we've got 50% of the field are headed in, or whatever. So, okay. Finally, the last thing I'll talk about and touch upon is live ranking. With live ranking, there is actually no functionality or anything that you have to enable in your dashboard. Rather, what you have to do for live ranking is simply make sure that in that data import, you have the category. Okay, and if you've got the category under the category field in there, live ranking will automatically deploy, and then you're good to go. Okay. Okay. Just to illustrate, there it is right there. All right. Okay. I am now going to hand it over to Emilio. If you'll all please bear with me while I do this real quick. I'm going to hide my ugly face and put Emilio in there. And great, okay, and then do that, okay. Okay, Emilio, take it away. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Daniel, and welcome to everybody to this webinar. I hope you are seeing my screen now. What I wanted to introduce you is the results page that we have at this in our Event CMS infrastructure. good news about the Event CMS results page is that you can use it when you are using our scoring solution, the timeline scoring, the scoring model. In that case, you have a automatical connection between timeline scoring and the Event CMS. So this is something that is easy to set up in 2 or 3 steps, and it can be done directly from timeline scoring, from the scoring part. But we know that some of you that are using other scoring solutions, and our results platform is possible to be used with those solutions. And the other important thing is that when you create an event just for uploading results, it is not needed to do all the steps that Dan has introduced in the previous part. Because we only need to create the event, it's not needed to add courses, establish timelines, leaderboards, or the timer setup page. You only need to come here to the first, the main screen of the dashboard and click in upload race results. When you do that, you are now in the page where we manage all the results. And the first thing that we should do is to set up the page. That's a good idea because then you can share that. Sorry, are you seeing my screen? Okay, I will continue. I suppose that it's being.
We see your file page open, not the CMS.
Not the CMS. Okay. Could you please? Are you seeing now the CMS, Raquel?
Yes, we see a CMS.
Okay, sorry for that. Yes, a quick. I go back a little bit. When I told you I was clicking this button here, upload race results, to open the results management page. What I'm telling you is, okay, we first need to set up the results page. So what we have to do is here in results type, that we have the different kind of results that we can upload it. We have to select the last option, the config with race update, and then fill. Okay, in this case, it's filled, it's correct, it's the United States, but maybe sometimes it's not correct, then you can select the country. And if you click in this triangle, you have the customization, the possible customization of the results. If you remember, Dan has established that the distance unit for this event is imperial. But I have selected here metric. Why? Because this is a completely different platform from live tracking. So the setup has not to be the same. So this is something good if you have results in different units, but this is also that's something that you have to check before continue, because you can easily make a mistake. I am using metric because also my examples are in metric units at this moment. Then you select what you want to do in terms of if you want to enable certificates no, or if your results needs to be milliseconds. Okay, you see all the options here, and then you click upload. Once you have done that, then the systems start to prepare the results page. If you have an organization page, these results are also linked to that organization page automatically. And clicking here, you can see what the system has prepared. They have prepared the webinar events, CMS for Americas, and we have the Well We Have Marathon and My Labs Thank You Run. Imagine that you don't want to publish the results for the Thank You Run because it's some non-competitive event, or it's fine for the live tracking, but not for the results. You can easily click here in remove. You say yes. And if you come here to the results, you see that we only have the Webby half marathon. In case you make a mistake and you say, oh, I removed the wrong race, doesn't matter. You can click again, config race update, and then upload it again. And you will have also the option, so the systems will give you again all the races. Once we have that, what we wanted to do is to upload the results. The results has to be uploaded using a CSV file. And as the case with the registration file, you have here all the possible fields that you can include in your file. The ones with the start means that they are compulsory ones. The others are optional. I will try to share with you my 2 examples that I have prepared. The first one is for a running event. As you can see here, the race name is 15K, so it's completely different name of the races that we have in the event. That is important if you are uploading all the results in a single file. In that case, the name of the race name has to be exactly the same as the name that you have in the results page. But if you do as is our suggestion, is race by race, this field is not taken into consideration. So you could not include it, or it doesn't matter which is what are the values of this field. Next fields are pretty common ones, so I am not going deep there, but I wanted to stop with the splits fields. If you want to include some split times in your results page, you could use it here. So it's just, for example, this is the split times of the 5K for this participant, but you have to set up the header of the field with a specific format. That format is first the word split, then the vertical bar, then the K5, that's the name of the split that you want to appear on the results page, then another vertical bar, and then the distance from the start to this split. This is a running event, but you can also have a triathlon. In the case of the triathlon, everything is exactly the same, with the only difference that you can include legs. Legs has also a specific format for the header that it begins with leg, then the column, or sorry, the vertical bar, then the name that you wanted to appear on the results page, in this case, swim, another bar, the sport that could be swimming, cycling, running, or transition. And then if you are not in a transition, another vertical bar, and then the distance in meters or in units. Also with the metric metric is in meters from the of that leg. So the leg has the total distance of the leg, and the split has the distance from the start of the leg to that particular one. And you can have also splits, including into some of the legs. Once we have the file prepared, then we can come again to the event CMS. Then we select event, select the file. In this case, I am selecting the running event. Then we have to select which race I wanted to use. This is for the Webby half marathon, and then just click on upload. While this is updating the results, I will go to the main dashboard, because other options that we have is just to create a new race just only for the results. So we have to come here to the main dashboard, click on create a new race. We have to select a race name. For in this case, it will be triathlon. The distance will be 22.4 in that case kilometers, and the sport will be triathlon. Once this is complete, then I don't need to do anything more here. I can come again to the results page and again update the setup. Okay, here now we have the triathlon event. It's also possible to say, okay, I don't want the triathlon to be the first event in our list. I want it to be the second one. So I move it. I can save the order. And as you can see here, we have, in the meantime, the Profes has uploaded the results for the running event. So if we refresh the results page, the public results page, we will have here the half marathon results, but also the new race that we have created, the triathlon. If we click in view results, we have the possibility to have more details in the list, also the possibility to filter with male, female, or any of the age divisions. But also, if you click on the results, you will have the splits that I explained to you before in the results page. I wanted to upload a triathlon results just for you to see how it works. I am now uploading the triathlon file that I have showed you before. I select the triathlon race and I click in upload. There is a problem here. Why? Because this, if you remember, this is a chip time event, and in my file there is only gun time for this triathlon. So we have two options. First option is here, change the setup for the complete event, but that's not suitable for us at this moment because we have races that are timed by chip time and others by gun time. So what we have to do is go here in config and then change the setting for this particular event. In this, for this particular race. Here in time to use, we select gun time, click on save, and then we are able to upload again the triathlon results. When we are doing that, we get another warning, another error, and says, oh, this, you are trying to upload 2 times the same file. So the system doesn't allow us to do that. The solution for that is just to make a small change and enter an extra space at the end of the file. So when you do that, then you are able to upload again the results file to the triathlon event, triathlon race, sorry. While there is uploading the results, I will tell you that this, as you can see, this can be done manually. Each time you have a new results files after the first one has finished the race. But also you can set up the system just to do this in an automatic way. For doing that in automatic way, you can set it in live results column, you can set up, and then you can say, okay, this is enabled, yes. Here you place the URL where you are publishing your file that is generated by your scoring software. If your scoring software has the capability to generate these files in an automatic way, then you can select which frequency do you want to go to that URL, take the file and upload it in the system. So you can choose between 2, 5, 10, or 30 minutes. And then you have to tell the system from when and date and time to from when the day start and when we finish. And when you click save, the system will do all these operations that I show you in manually. They will do automatically. Finally, in this time, we have uploaded the triathlon results. I click back, and here you have the triathlon. If you click in one of the participants, you can see that you have the 3 legs with the 2 transitions, plus the splits that you have included in your results file. This is all for my side at this moment. I will hand over to Raquel for the remainder of the webinar.
Thank you, Emilio, for your presentation. Okay, now I'm gonna go over the support channels you can use to reach out, or if you have any questions in your CMS or your event app. The first one is what we call the Zendesk or the knowledge base. You can find that at the top right corner of your CMS screen, and it has a search option. So you can type in whatever topic you need, and then it will get you to it. You can also email us at support.mail or Skype. Skype is only for weekends during a race. Is the way our engineer or our support warrior, that's how we call him, reach out to you if you have any conflicts during your race. You can also contact us by phone, and we have a new CMS chat option. You currently will see agent offline, but once we are up and running with the events, you will see an agent online, and you will chat with the engineer or the weekend warrior. If you would like extra training or you want a one-on-one session, you can reach out to your account manager and we will get that scheduled. One more thing, we have a MyLabs virtual race. We would like you to join. This race is global, all the MyLabs offices and partners. So you have two distance options. It's live on the app. So open SportHive and search for the MyLabs virtual run. The results are gonna be uploaded daily, and you can upload you can try as many times you need. So if you want to outwin someone or you wanna challenge your account manager or another colleague, so feel free to do so. And now let's open the time for questions.
We have some, sorry.
Yep. Go ahead, Emilio.
Yes, there is one question from Mena Sehata. Can I use third-party timing and scoring software with the app? That was answered before by Dan, but yes, it's not for the live tracking, but you can use your own scoring solution for the results part. Yeah. That's for you, Dan. Does that message is available for everybody? That's a question from Andres Garcia, and is related to the message that we have when we set up the timing location, in case there is something wrong.
Yeah. You can type a message per timeline or specific timeline. I'm not sure if I'm answering the question, but that's available. Correct.
And will be available to all the participants and all the users. When they saw the live tracking, they will see, instead of the time, they will see that message.
It's only available to app users who have elected to follow an athlete. Okay. So if you elected to follow a runner, if a timeline goes down, then the message will be shown in that event app in the tracking page. So conversely, if you've elected not to follow anyone, there's no messages that are sent just to app users in that regard. Timeline's down. Okay.
Yes, we have another question from Andres. Is what about configuration of loop races? Those ones you can go to an HTML editor and just copy the coordinates of each race, and you can have that course copied as many times as you need, which one copy is one loop.
Yeah, loops, you can definitely do loops, and like Raquel said, you can create that in an editor and import the GPX file, or you can draw the course map and I've done a few of these. It's just, drawing the loops. One quick side note about loops, which is very important, is that you will be reusing timelines most likely. And really nothing complicated about that other than if you've got timelines on the course, you just create the timeline. The only difference is if you're recycling a timeline, one will be, say, 3 miles from the start. The other one will be 5 miles from the start. So, but those are all things that we'll be more than happy to show in a one-on-one training session for you all. Yes. Okay. What other questions do we have here? Bear with me. Okay.
We have several questions.
Yep.
The ID that we have to include in the registration data, it's coming from the registration or for where? This is also a question from Mena.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the unique ID most commonly is generated from the online registration provider. That's, you just have to make sure it's a unique number, but they all have that provided already. So you just include that in your file and so on.
We have a question from Vivian Manjares. Mm-hmm. In case of live tracking, should we have leaderboards using information only for the split?
I'm not sure on that one, to be honest. I know you can go the other way. You can enable leaderboards, and for a particular split or timeline, hide that timeline from the leaderboard. Okay, but I don't. Yeah, or I guess you could do it if you want to just do a leaderboard for. Well, it would be difficult to do it for one split because you need to have 2 splits at least to capture the first passing to have the leaders, and then the second to reveal the progression. So, yeah, I'm not sure if I answered it, but I can find out. So I will find out, David. Thank you. What other questions do we have?
Yes, there is a question from Mike Peabody. Is the functionality for relays the same as individuals? Tracking, results, registration data, etc.?
Okay, for relays, on one level, it's basically the same in that the process to import the data and all that is the same. You'd create leaderboards specifically for relays. That's the same. The only caveat or the difference with the relay is there's a couple things that we need to know ahead of time. The most beneficial relay format is when you have a relay team that has 1 bib in 1 chip code, meaning that chip is passed on with a baton or a arm wrap. That way we can recognize that particular chip assigned to that relay team. The other method is when you have a relay team and each individual relay participant has a unique chip code in bib. In that case, then we would just track them as individuals and maybe furnish the relay team name in a field. And then another part to that is when contingent upon the format of the relay, in the import, you do have to do some special things with a formula to, particularly if you have all the last names of the team members, you can put them in the family name column, and you can put the team name in the given name column, so that if the preference is to show team name with the last names in the tracking, we can do that. Most of the time, we just simply use one name and the relay name assigned to one chip code where they're passing the baton, and off you go. So I probably complicated it as I usually do, but relays are fun. exciting, and that we have some solutions for them for sure. Okay.
I will follow up with some of the other questions on through email on one-on-one. It's just configuration questions. And I just wanted to mention one last thing. We have a webinar number 4. That's next Thursday. We will cover equipment maintenance. So you can register at www.mylabs.com/webinars. It will be how to do a routine check of your equipment. And we will also have some expert training on how to maintain the hardware. So if you have any more comments or questions.
Yep, and also feel free to reach out to us. We're here to help. And one thing I'll say is the success of the app and the live tracking feature is based a lot on our partner timers. So thank you for all that you do out there, and we'll get back at it. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone,
you.
for joining.
Yep, take care. Bye-bye.